The first to arrive was Dr. Hannibal Lecter. He brought his own date, and he seemed to respect her. They hit the dance floor with a jive and a jitter. Then he ripped off her face! He's pulling out her liver!
That's really gross.
Oh my God, what just happened?
He ate her face.
Yes, I know! I saw!
Speaking of saw,
I like to play disgusting games.
he broke his jaw.
That is way too graphic. I'm going to faint. Surely all the other guests won't be this rude. Like this classic monster, a scary hip dude. He's got a kooky style and a spooktastic look. Oh my God, he just hung the waiter on a meat hook. Why?
He's Leatherface.
He's cutting him up with a chainsaw.
It's what he does.
Who is Freddy Krueger?
He haunts your dreams.
Ooh, he sounds like a real spooker.
I murder teens. You can't escape me, bitch.
Language. In my day, the monsters would just give you a spook. Nowadays, it seems they all just want to make you puke. Enough! The party's over. Everybody out. You all have no idea what Spooktober is about. Here comes the Wolfman. He'll show you how it's done. He knows how to be creepy, but he always keeps it fun. No! That was my friend. Why did he meet such a horrifying end?
It's spooky season, everybody. Little special intro on the Full Take Dynasty podcast.
Awesome.
I'm, of course, the host of the most honest hands, Tom Stipple FF. I always like to throw a little something different at my co-hosts when they don't expect it. So that's what it is. It's my favorite version of that song. So it's fantastic. Look, I'm your host of the most honest hands. I'm Tom Stipple FF. This is a special Saturday edition of the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, as we couldn't make something happen on Friday because I went out for shout out Barry's birthday, so that was great.
Ooh.
With me back in the peg is my mate over here on my right. This is Jakob Sanderson, FF_RTDB. Billy could not be with us today. We were gonna have Tom Lee, but some stuff happened across the globe that couldn't make that happen. But we're here. As you can see by the title, it's week 8. It is spooky season, night before Halloween. Super stoked, man. The slate of games don't look to be as dreadful as they did last week, although last week kind of surprised us with a few big Halloween plans for you this weekend. Are you going out trick-or-treating with your little baby face there and all dressing up, or what's going on?
No, I hit up some Halloween parties last night, and I had to lick my wounds, recover, get ready for a double header of shows today. I'm doing this one with you, and then just if anyone's tuning in, if you're thinking about playing a little DFS, we're gonna talk Dynasty for about an hour here, and then I'm gonna take a very quick 10-minute break. I'm gonna chug a glass of water, and then all of a sudden we're gonna run it back with the DFS show. And Chase Vernon at FF Intervention is gonna join me for that one. But I'm doing well. The only thing that I'm scared of tomorrow is the big AFC South clash. I'm going to be sitting on my buttocks for Halloween watching the games. If anyone follows Dynasty Jake on Twitter, we have a wager going on for the game. And if the Titans win, I have to make my Twitter name Derrick Henry as my daddy for next week. And I'm photoshopping my head on Josh Norman. And that'll be my profile picture for a week, is me getting stiff armed by the king. And if the Colts pull it out, then his name will be Remember the Titans, and with a little question mark. And we're gonna figure out a nice little Carson Wentz themed profile photo for him. So I'm excited for it. Jake's a good buddy of mine on the site and a big Titans enthusiast. So we're raring to go for a big one this weekend.
There's a couple of times a year where fantasy football interjects with our real life football, and that's when it becomes like it's the most real in more ways. Like, you get to enjoy it, but at the same time you're doubly frustrated for sure, especially when things aren't going your way. Look, we like to kick off the shows a lot of the time with news done our own way, but the weird thing is about this week is there's not a lot of real news. Right? We're at a point in the season where we know who's coming off of IR. We know who's supposed to, who's delayed. At this point, it's Saturday. We kind of know who's out. Like Julio's out. Shepard's questionable but trending up. Tony's questionable but trending up. We've seen the videos already at practice. Galladay's already been announced out. What a fucking... Remember when he was signed to be the true alpha in New York? Oh my God. Well, I can't believe he got paid like that. Looks even worse now, right? McCaffrey's not due back till next week. Kittle's not due back till next. Like, next week is going to be the week of news. The only bit of real news that you and I were talking about that we really give a shit about is Dak not playing. I'm going to say not playing. He's not even questionable to me. I think that everything you've heard, this isn't some like witchcrafty secret hidden gem of coachery, right, by McCarthy. I just don't think he's going to play. How say you, and what you say to do?
Man, I have no idea, honestly. I have Dak in 2 of my home leagues, and honestly, I have like no lean. I think it's 50-50. Early in the week, it seemed like he was. I remember CeeDee Lamb came out, said he was 90% sure he was going to play. I was putting him in there with confidence. Then later in the week, it looked like it was actually really unlikely that he was going to play. I was kind of bracing most of yesterday for him to be ruled out. And now it's come out they're going to take it all the way to game time. I'm hearing some beat reporters say they think they're going to play it safe. Other beat reporters coming out saying they think Dak's going to play. I honestly don't know. I think the more interesting thing is just if you have Dak, especially in the format that we usually talk about on here, which is Dynasty Superflex, what the heck do you do? If it's a noon game, it doesn't even matter, right? You just wait for inactives to come out. Okay, great. Dak's playing, not playing, whatever, plug it in. But Sunday Night Football is tough. In my opinion, if Dak is one of only 2 quarterbacks that's active this week on your roster, potentially active, then I don't think there's even a choice. You hold Dak, you hope that he plays. If Cooper Rush is available still on your waiver wire, you add him. And if not, you try to figure out some sort of backup plan that you can slot in either from the Sunday night game or the Monday night game in case he's inactive. But the difference between Dak versus like position player in your super flex is such a massive one. I don't think you can just forego that. If you have another quarterback, like in our home league, I'm in the situation. So I have Dak, Matt Ryan, Taylor Heineke, right? That's one where it's pretty tough. I'm going to hope that we get some sort of Schefter lean, kind of like where we got with Waller last week, where he was like, still no decision, but it's not looking good, right? But if we get nothing, if it's just exactly like it is right now, it's a hard decision to make, probably what I would do in that situation. In this specific one, Heineke plays in the late slate. So I'm going to have a feel for whether I'm looking good to win or looking like I'm going to lose. And, if I'm looking like I'm going to win, I'm probably just going to play Heineke, take the safe quarterback of that slot. If it looks like I'm going to lose either way, I'd rather play Dak and try to bank on that 30-point ceiling that he has, in a way that Heineke doesn't. And I think that's the way I'd approach it generally, even if you have someone in the noon games. If you're looking at the projection and says you're 80% chance to win, right, I probably wouldn't want to play Dak Prescott roulette. I'd probably just lock in whatever gets you, the points that you need. If you're on the other side, if you're on the 20 side, you may as well be a little bit more willing to take the risk with Dak because we know he's definitely a better play than whoever else you got. If you're just in a 1 QB format, especially like redraft, like don't fuck with it. Just take whoever you can stream off waivers. Like you could probably have picked up Carson Wentz at some point. You might be able to get, worst case, a Taylor Heineke. I'm trying to think of other dudes. Probably the guys we're going to talk about in the streamers, like potentially, a Winston, potentially a Lawrence, all these guys. Like just take that option.
For me, like Heineke is the guy because I think Fitz is supposed to come back here shortly. So like jury's out. So people might actually be willing to trade the waiver wire god that has been Heineke, Tay.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what I have to do, right? Especially if you're contending at all, right? If you have Dak, good chance you might still be in it. And I don't like 3 and 5. You're not throwing in the towel. You don't just take the L and cruise into 3 and 6. You're not out of it. You know what? While we're talking about it, we're going to get back to Heineke and the Dak thing, but I'm kind of want to mention, this is going to have a little different vibe on today's show, but I just want to mention, stop telling people they're out of it in trade offers when they're 3 and 5.
That's
right. If somebody's 3 and 5, I get DMs of screenshots every day. Because on the walkabout, we talk about how to handle your league mates. I get DMs every day or text messages saying, how do I handle this? How do I handle this? Being 3 and 5 doesn't mean you're out of it. It doesn't mean another player is totally out of it, right? Anything can happen. When you're sending DMs to, shout out Maddie, when you're sending DMs to people for trades, like, hey, you're 3 and 5, you're out of it. Let me get that running back for 2 picks. Stop it. Stop doing it. Okay, that person likely already hates you just before you send an offer. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's just so many different ways to go about it, right? I read a
yeah,
great piece. Adam Harstad has been writing this phenomenal series on rebuilding his dynasty team, and he talks a lot about his trading style. And mine is similar. I think the number one key to being a good trader is to always frame your trades in terms of what the other person needs, what the other person values, right? It's,
yeah,
I think so many times you see people, right, and they're like, oh man, their attitude to a trade is they decide one day, okay, I really want Calvin Ridley, and then they just fire off, the same offer for Calvin Ridley in 10 different leagues, and then they're shocked when they continually get rejected. And that's just not the way to do it. If you do want a guy specifically, right, look at their roster, try to see. The way I usually go about it, like I'm in certain leagues, right, where I'm a contender, I'm trying to look for an extra piece. All I'm doing, I'm going, to the rosters that look like they're sort of at the bottom end, 1-6, 2-5, whatever, maybe 3-4.
yes,
If their points for is a little lower, I see what the roster, and then I try to see, okay, what do they have? What might be expendable? But you also got to do that in a humble way, right? If anything, you just DM the person. If they're 3-4, maybe you don't know, right? Like everyone 3-4, their mindset's a little bit different. Some people see that as 3-4, go, hey, I've got to add so I can get into the playoffs, or other people say I've got to unload stuff. You just go and say, I mean, you're allowed to talk to people, right? You're allowed to message the 3-4 manager in your league. Hey, what are you thinking here? Are you looking to add some folks and make a push? Or do you think you might be willing to sell some folks? What are you going to do? And then they'll probably tell you. I'll tell you what.
I agree.
You'll certainly have a lot more success doing it that way than just going to someone and badgering them and be like, hey, your team sucks. You suck.
Yes.
Give me your players. Actually, they aren't good. And I want them.
Yeah,
like,
they're not good for you, but they'll be good for me.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. It's stupid. And here's another thing, right? If you're a team that's 5-2, right, 6-1, and you think you're like in it,
Mhm.
and you're like, hey, that 26-year-old stud wide receiver, hey, Stephon Diggs. I mean, you're rebuilding. You don't need a guy like Stephon Diggs on your team. He's not gonna die next year. Like,
Right.
approach people with things that make sense. That's all. Like, I know we normally talk about that on the walkabout, but just this week, I've had 15 different questions or people coming at me for trades for my teams that aren't great. Because for clarity, I'm not fucking undefeated in all my leagues. That doesn't happen, right? I don't care who you are, but I've actually had people approach me like that, or I've gotten the messages. So I just wanted to touch on it now. Stop doing that. Show some respect to your league mates, unless they're D-bags, in which case, berate away. But for me, if I'm a player that has Dak and I'm waiting, and you're like me and you live on the edge, right on the edge in Superflex, where you only have 2 viable quarterbacks, which I do all the time, you already have, as we always say, a Post-it note on your forehead stapled that says "screw me." So your best chance is to go and hopefully be able to snag someone like Heineke for whatever you can get away trading away for him. Yeah, I traded Jakob here a third because he was in this scenario in our home league.
Yeah.
Which was fine. I held on to him all year in hopes to get literally anything. That's totally fine. Other than that, you're hoping in a prayer. Hope you got someone else, because I don't want to play Cooper Rush even in Superflex. Play Tony Pollard in that spot instead.
I did the same thing with Heineke in the other league where I have Heineke off waivers, and well, in this case he was just expendable to you. In my case it's even easier. My team is bad and I'm in a rebuild spot, and I had Heineke just off the waivers, and I had someone who's like, hey man, can I get a Heineke off you? I was like, yeah, whatever you can afford to send me, like, let's just do it, because I don't need this guy. Like,
exactly,
accomplishing anything for me.
And most of the time, right, that's the situation for the person that has Heineke. So I mean, that's the target for me.
Your other guys like Jimmy G, Ben Roethlisberger, like if you just need a guy that has Q and B. But the nice thing with Heineke is he runs. So like even though the future is not exactly bright with Heineke, I actually don't mind him as a decent enough bet to get you 20 points for a couple of weeks if you need it.
So that's kind of how we would negotiate. Maddie says Tom's played that way since day one. It's very true. Very true. 50-50, sometimes you do really well and other times it's absolute booty cheeks, but you just got to have hope and a prayer. Look, that's an extended news with not a whole lot of news, right? So we're going to step away when we come back. We're going to get into a little trade exercise. We're going to talk about, since it's week 8, it's the NFL deadline, we want to talk a little bit about potential stuff for the trade deadline, and then a little bit on how to navigate your league's trade deadline. But Tom, in my league, we don't have a trade. I don't care. Okay, normal people have trade deadlines. If that case, my league doesn't have trade. You can trade in the championship game. One, that's fucking stupid, and two, good for
man.
you. Most
I'm
people
in one
don't do
league
that.
like that. It is
It's
so
dumb.
stressful. Like
It's dumb.
there's nothing. It was great for me last year because my team was brutal and I didn't really have to, well, actually, so my team was like kind of brutal value wise, but it was very much on the edge of playoff contention for most of the year. And the nice thing is like I didn't have to make an early decision. I was like, I can just ride this all out and then find out if I'm eliminated and then sell people. But Matty, he's in the chat. He knows he's in this league. Like it was so stressful. Like dudes are playing in the finals. And I traded a dude, Ezekiel Elliott and Tyreek Hill, the week before the championship game. Like, do you know how stressful that is?
It's dumb.
If you're playing the other dude, but it was so much fun because, like, for people in my position, I could talk to both of them, and I was like, "Hey, you guys, you're playing in the championship game this week. Which one of you wants Ezekiel Elliott and Tyreek Hill? Please overpay me because you can literally buy $500 if you win this week." Like, it's the absolutely most insane scenario, and I
understand it, but it's just it's the only way to play. If you don't play it like that, you're a pussy, right? Like it's like most people don't have that. Okay, so we're not going to talk about that. And I beat him for the ship.
He sure did.
You and I both won. There you go. Sure did. See, we're exposing some stuff here. But all right, look, like I said, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it again. If this doesn't apply to your league, that's fine. Just sit tight and hang in. We're going to talk deadline in a second. Well, week 8 is here, and that means trades in the NFL. The last couple of years, I think there's been, a few. There's actually been a few deals to get done. I mean, the Ravens did some work. I believe it was last season, right? Leading up to the deadline. Some other teams did. I think that this is one of those years where we're going to see a few moves. It's starting to somewhat kind of be like the NBA, right? With how players talk. I want out of here, right? You have to trade me. The logistics isn't the same as the NBA, right? But there could be some deals done. So what we're going to talk about some trades that we think are going to happen, that are likely, some trades that we don't think that'll happen, but we want to, and some trades that would benefit some other teams. And we're going to talk about the fantasy implications of that. And if we have time, like I said, we're going to talk about navigating the fantasy landscape of your own trade deadline. As a little preview, because that's what Tom Lee and I will be doing on Tuesday. So, Jacob, first trade of the day. What is a trade that you don't? Who is a player? Let's not say what is a trade, but who is a player that you don't think is going to get moved, but you want to see moved, and what would be the fantasy implications of that?
Yeah, this one's close to home. Marlon Mack. He's been in trade rumors for a month since I believe it was after week 2 where they said that they were shopping him. And I don't think it's going to happen for a couple of reasons. Number one is just how much better the Colts have been playing of late. When that report came out, they were an 0-3 football team. It looked like their season was going nowhere. All of a sudden, they've really turned it around. I mean, they were a block kick against the Ravens from having won 4 in a row. They have a big game at home this week against the Titans. If they win that game, they're 4-4, a game out of the AFC South. And all of a sudden, Marlon Mack, even on an expiring contract, is actually worth quite a lot to them because if Jonathan Taylor goes down, I love Nyheim Hines, but you're not giving Nyheim Hines 20 carries a game. They're going to need someone to come in. They actually cut Jordan Wilkins today. I know anyone who's ever rostered Jonathan Taylor in Dynasty is familiar with the work of Jordan Wilkins from last year when he was vulturing Taylor all the time, when he was struggling as a rookie. Basically, what that means is right now, if they trade Mack and Taylor goes down to injury at any point or COVID or anything, like their backfield would now be Nyheim Hines, who's, a scat back, change of pace, receiving weapon, and Deion Jackson, who's an undrafted free agent out of Duke. I don't think that they're very comfortable for that. So I'm sure that Mack is still on the block. But point is, like, he's not going to go for what we saw, like, Mark Ingram go for, that 5th-round pick. Yeah. Like, if someone calls up the Colts and says, we'll give you a 3rd, by all means, he's gone. But I don't think anyone's going to do that. And I think that that's the kind of return that the Colts would need to move on from Mack. And if Mac's unhappy with it, whatever, he's unhappy with what? He's not going to get playing time. Well, as long as Taylor's healthy, he's not going to get all that much playing time. He's going to get like a series a game. And I'll tell you what, if Taylor goes down, he's going to get a lot of playing time. He's going to suck it up and he's going to play his ass off for a contract next year. So that's the one that I think is not going to happen. I mean, Taylor's still going to be great rest of the season. Obviously, his ceiling would be better without Mac, just because Mac does seem to get about a series each half. And those are carries that are coming away directly from JT. But ultimately, that's one I think that is unlikely to happen before the deadline.
I know that fantasy managers want Matt gone, but if you're watching the games and you're mad about Taylor's usage and you're like, if only Marlon Mack wasn't there. Like, if that's the reason that you're believing, you're not watching or paying attention to snaps and touches and what's happening. Mack isn't drastically affecting Taylor's outcome. Okay. Hines can sometimes. It's mostly just Carson Wentz affecting Jonathan Taylor's usage. Right.
I really do think it's a Hines issue because
it is and he's not going anywhere.
Matt comes in essentially when Taylor gets tired. So if Jonathan Taylor's not I don't think any running back is 2019 Christian McCaffrey anymore, right? Maybe Najee Harris is the closest thing we have. But so Taylor's not going to play 100%.
Necessity because Kalen Balazs.
Right. So Mac comes in, he plays about a series per half, whatever. Like if Mac was gone, Hines would probably get you're going to have everybody has that change of pace back. It's tilting. It's fun to make Mac jokes on Twitter and I enjoy it, but it's not a real thing. The only thing that's holding back Taylor's usage ceiling is that he does not play on he actually does play some long down distance, but he's never going to be out there in the 2-minute drill because that's Nyheim Hines' role. I guarantee you, if Nyheim Hines went down due to injury, Marlon Mack is probably not out there playing the 2-minute drill. Taylor is going to have that opportunity, but that's Hines, right? That's not going to change. If Mack gets traded, maybe Taylor plays an extra series, maybe. I think it's probably just more Hines because he's still holding down that 2-minute drill. So it's not probably as big of an effect as people think.
No, and they're still just going to have whatever third running back on the roster run that ball into the A gap when they just need NFL coaches just feel like they need to run it straight up the middle on first down for some stupid reason. It still will be just another guy. An undrafted guy can do that. Right? So, we kind of want Mac to be gone, but why? Right? So it's probably not actually going to happen given the reasons that you said. A player that I don't actually think is getting traded is Allen Robinson.
Yeah.
He NFL GMs don't care about our fantasy football leagues. They do not care about what we want. They care about what's going to be best for their team. And your rookie quarterback that you drafted is struggling. Would trading one of the best receivers in the league benefit him? No. I don't think the Bears will do that. And for some reason, I just think Matt Nagy will be like, hey, trust me with Allen Robinson. I'm going to get this thing turned around. He seems to just be able to talk his way into whatever he wants. So for some reason, I just think Matt Nagy is going to convince the Bears management to hold on to him because they're not letting him go for a 4th-round pick. Not letting him go for a 5th-round pick. I just don't see that happening. Would it save Allen Robinson's season? I'd hope so. But I don't see that happening. I think if you have Allen Robinson in fantasy football and Dynasty, you're just sadness for this year and hoping that he goes somewhere where he gets used.
People need to understand how compensatory picks work. So what a lot of people don't realize what happens with the compensatory pick structure. And I don't even understand it fully. But look, very long story short, basically, if you have a player and they walk for quote unquote nothing, you still get something that's based on whatever their contribution was to the team and a few other different factors. For Allen Robinson, if he walks for nothing after this season, the Bears probably get a 3rd-round compensatory pick for him. So essentially, for the Bears to even consider a trade offer, you have to offer a 2nd. Otherwise, there's no point. It's not like hockey or like basketball where you have a dude on your roster, and if you're not going to make the playoffs, you go, oh man, we better get rid of this guy, otherwise we're going to lose him for nothing. You don't lose him for nothing in the NFL. You don't. You get the compensatory pick. So that's the other question. Is any team going to give up a second-round draft pick for a half a season of Allen Robinson, who's going to be a free agent, and then all you get is the right to maybe pay him in free agency, right? Otherwise, you're just getting him for half a season. Probably not. Like, would it be awesome to see, him go to a place like the Kansas City Chiefs, or, I mean, they're not going to trade him to the Green Bay Packers. Get out of here. But, potentially the New Orleans Saints, or even the Colts, or I forgot, there's other teams that need a wide receiver. Yeah, it'd be awesome. I mean, I'd love it. And I really do hope it happens. Like, I'm rooting for it. But you got to keep your expectations in check, because, they're not going to trade him for a fifth-round pick, because that's literally less than they get if they lose him for nothing.
Yeah, the Ravens are the masters of those picks. They've built their rosters on those kind of picks, letting players walk. And it's not going to help Fields. It's not going to help the team. Nagy's not going to want it, right? I don't see it happening. It would be fun, but I don't see Allen Robinson getting traded. But yet, I say that, and probably by the time we're done this episode, he's going to get shipped. Like, we saw Mohamed Sanu get traded for a second, right? So you're thinking, of course a team will pay a second, but not everyone's desperate Bill Belichick.
That was one of the most bizarre trades ever.
Is one of the worst things I've ever seen. Yeah. Rough. Okay. A trade that you do see happening and how it affects fantasy. Who do you actually see moved?
Here's a name I actually think will get moved, is Devonte Parker. I think that there's going to be a lot of teams that could use a pass catcher, a wide receiver. I imagine Allen Robinson is probably those teams' first call, and the Bears probably say, give us a second-round pick, whatever. And maybe they say no. Anyway, I think Devonte Parker, similar situation, but he's not an expiring deal. So there's not a compensatory pick situation to worry about. I think he has one more year left on his contract after this one. From what I'm hearing, the Miami Dolphins are really looking to trade one of Fuller or Parker. Going to be harder to move Fuller since he's still recovering from that broken finger. And especially, I think it's pretty obvious that Miami is in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. Watson and Fuller's relationship, we all know, is very close. I imagine that they would probably like to keep Fuller and see if they get Watson and see if they can keep those two together again in Miami. So Parker, I think, is a guy that can obviously go. There's just not they're going to have Mike. They're going to have Fuller as a free agent. They're going to have Mike Gesicki as a free agent. It wouldn't shock me if they want to keep one of those. And then you have Waddle, who they just spent the world on to bring on. He's obviously their wide receiver. One of the future is their plan. Parker's not their long-term plans, and I think he's expected to play this week. If you see him go out and have a nice day, it would not surprise me at all if he's on the move. They get some money off the books. I think the Saints certainly would be interested in Devonte Parker. I think that the Packers for sure would be interested in Devonte Parker. I think the Chiefs would be interested in Devonte Parker for sure, because I think they've really, frankly, it's weird to say, but I think they've really missed Sammy Watkins this year, where just have that reliable possession receiver, especially since Kelsey and Hill have been battling injuries. And you watch this Chiefs team when either of them are not on the field, and it's just a bunch of dudes. Like they went out, they tried to make Josh Gordon a thing. He's not getting a lot of snaps. Pringle's just another little dude. Demarcus Robinson, they've tried to make into that Watkins role, but he's just not very good. And Hardman's sort of a different animal. He's really more of a poor man's Tyreek than he is ever going to line up and play X receiver. So yeah, I think Parker is one that I actually do expect to get moved.
Yeah, Devonte Parker is a player I could see getting moved. I think you're right. Will Fuller's not going to go, right? If Miami and Houston has a deal in place for the quarterback from Houston, they're not going to move Fuller. And I think that player goes there. I think Fuller immediately jumps back to his previous status, which would be great for the RTDB needle brand.
Oh, I'd be so happy.
And
that's
steroid
the
positivity.
Dream, man. That's the dream, man. I just want my boy with Deshaun again. I've talked about how I feel about the Deshaun Watson situation before, but if there's like one positive thing from Deshaun, it would absolutely be the Billy Needles could get back into his former form.
Yeah, just absolutely insane. Like, you'd have to boost Waddle, Fuller. You boost everyone on that team the second that trade happens, right? Like,
absolutely. Absolutely you do. I mean, it's all up in the air, right? Because we don't even know for sure. Okay. First of all, I actually don't think he's going to get traded, just because everything that I am hearing is that the teams that are interested, they want safeties put in place based on the legal situation. And Nick Caserio right now, the Texans GM, he's that manager, in a dynasty league that screwed up a lot of things. Doesn't have a very good team, but he's got like one prime asset that everybody in the league knows he needs to sell. But he has to get it right, because if he doesn't get the biggest possible package for that asset, there's nowhere else where assets are going to come from. They're not growing on trees. So he has no choice. And I think that with Deshaun Watson, I just don't see a scenario where he's willing to part with Watson with all of the protections that people want in place. Because if things go south on the legal side and they end up not getting a significant return for him, they're just so screwed. So I really think he's going to play hardball. He's going to wait it out. I mean, the Texans aren't getting any good anytime soon anyhow. So what benefit does he have in forcing this timeline up when he can take the full off season? There's more suitors because teams aren't going to be forced to get him, acclimated right away. I don't think he actually does get moved. But yes, absolutely. If he ends up on the Miami Dolphins, you're moving up Waddle. You're moving up Fuller, especially because I think the chances they re-sign Fuller just become way higher if he gets to play with Watson again. Tougher with Gesicki. I don't know if they'd end up re-signing him or not, but anyone attached to Watson on that offense, I mean, it goes up. Tua's been playing really well lately, but it does not take a lot of memory to recollect when Deshaun Watson was, the 1-2, 1-3, 1-4 in pretty much every startup, and that's for a reason.
Yeah, 100%. It'll be interesting to see what happens or if it happens. For me, a player I think could actually get moved is actually another Houston Texan. It's Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
Right? I see him getting traded. He's not happy. Like, he is super pissed.
Yes.
And there are two of his former teams that could really use wide receivers right now. New Orleans and New England. New England went and spent a ton of money on pass catchers, and none of them are doing anything.
Yeah, the only dude who's doing anything is the guy they already had.
Yeah, they all look like horrific purchases on a very odd and weird, like, day one of free agency for New England. It was fucking weird. So if New England was willing to move a second-round pick for Mohamed Sanu, who was dust, why wouldn't they make a move to help Mac Jones get a viable, true number one? And I don't want to take anything away from Jakobi Meyers. He's been great, but he's not Brandon Cooks. So now you have Myers on the inside playing the slot role, and you have Cooks on the outside with Aguilar or Bourne, whichever one wants to do something that week. That would help Mac Jones, and that would help New England get back into the playoff picture, which they already are kind of coming back around to, which is terrifying. So I see that trade happening, and I can also see New Orleans going in and starting the 2016 reunion. I think they're only short Willie, Snead, and Cooks right now.
Well, Snead's available. He was cut.
Well, he was signed to a practice roster, but he is available. He's on the Panthers practice squad now. But I could see it happening. Not actually, but I think New England is more likely than New Orleans. But I would see Sean Payton being able to do something like that. Houston's obviously open for business. Third round pick.
And we know the Saints don't give a fuck about
Cooks.
trading picks. Like, they don't care. Picks,
No.
cap, whatever. They don't care. They never cared, and they never will.
Luke Veer with the let Jakobi cook.
Yeah.
I hate that Russell Wilson phrase was ever coined, because now it's every fucking player. Let this player cook. Let them cook. They're already cooking, damn it. That's the thing. They just, if they're good, they'll keep cooking either way. So I see Brandon Cook getting moved. Those are the situations. Obviously, anywhere other than Houston will boost Brandon Cooks.
Oh, absolutely.
And for Houston, you don't want anyone playing there anyway. I remember when the trade for Mark Ingram went down, and people were like, David Johnson, yeah, Philip Lindsay, yeah, fuck that. I don't want them anyway. There's no scenario. If Philip Lindsay gets traded to Baltimore, I'll want Philip Lindsay. Outside of that, I don't give a single shit about the running backs in Houston. I do not care. I don't care about Tyrod Taylor. I don't care about Davis Mills. Right now, I don't really care about Brandon Cooks just because of Davis Mills. I don't care about anyone there until some trades happen. So relax with that.
Yeah, no thanks from the Texans running backs. For all we know, it's going to be Rex Burkhead taking over those Ingram carries.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Okay. What is the trade? Crap, I forget what the third one is now.
I think
Don't
we
see
talked these
happening.
trades a good amount, bro.
What we see is going to happen. Oh gosh,
This is
I'm
really
so
good
sorry.
radio.
I've completely forgotten what the last one was.
I think we kind of combine them together. I think we can start getting into the plays of the week, honestly.
So let's real quick. I want to talk about how to navigate fantasy football deadlines.
Oh yeah, let's do this. Yeah.
So most leagues have a week 9, a week 10 deadline. Should be, I think, week 10 with everything getting moved up a week, right? With week 17 championships. Yes, they should be week 17 championships. No questions about that personally. But obviously, you need to make moves, right? You can't just sit on your hands. So what I want from you is a couple of players that you're looking at in every league, no matter what, just in a total vacuum, contender, non-contender. Who are the value players? I want 2 from you that you're actively trying to acquire, and how do you go about doing so? Because I know your methodology is a hell of a lot different than mine. So I'd be interested to hear how you match your young Pareto principles to the trade deadline in fantasy.
Yeah, and these are specifically like situation agnostic. So like guys I would pursue if I'm contending or if I'm not contending.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Number one for me is actually right now is Deontay Johnson. He's a guy that I'm after in pretty much all situations. His dynasty value continues to hover in the back end wide receiver 2 range, and I expect, especially without Juju, he's going to be providing pretty much back end wide receiver 1 value for the rest of the season. And he's only 24 years old. The quarterback situation, I've sort of seen as a blessing and a curse for him recently, where I think Ben Roethlisberger is very bad. And so that, limits the ceiling of Deontay Johnson. But Ben Roethlisberger also just hyper targets him, and he hyper targets him in the only area of the field that Ben Roethlisberger can throw to, which is that short area of the field. So I think that, maybe it's not going to be liftoff when Ben goes. But Deontay has proven to me, I think this year, that he really has taken a step forward. He's become a player that's winning at all levels of the field. I see more from him on intermediate routes, on deep routes this year, and still just commanding an absolutely alpha target share. I think that he's a real nice piece that you can get at a pretty affordable price on really any.
Unless it's from Maddie.
Unless it's from Maddie. I tried today in FNL, man, and that Hurts Zack Wilson trade. I was really pressing for Deontay to be included in that deal. So that's one. And then another guy, I'll name check T. Higgins because I think yes, but also he's just sort of in that sphere where everybody's talking about him as a buy low. So I don't really know how affordable T. Higgins
you're not getting him for
actually
what
is.
the Twitter. You're not getting him for what the Twitter fan wants you to get him for.
Right. So I'll name check T. Higgins, but I don't necessarily know what that is. And then the last guy that I think you should be trying to get, really regardless of whatever your situation is, for me, would probably be in a super flex league, just that like sort of back end of quarterbacks. So I think I would target all of these guys actually, from Matt Ryan to Derek Carr to Ryan Tannehill to Carson Wentz. All those guys, I think those are 4 guys. I'll throw in Cousins too. I think those are 5 guys. Mm-hmm. I'm actually very confident all of them will have a job next year. And I'm very confident that all of them will be able to provide QB2 value for the rest of the year. When you get into the playoffs, if you have injuries, if you have different things pop up, all those situations are extremely detrimental. I think you can pick those guys up as a potential QB3. I think you can pick those up as a potential QB2. And I think a lot of them are going to have QB1 weeks. Those are guys I would be looking at in all of my super flex dynasty leagues, where I think a lot of people have certain anxieties about them, especially if they're not a contender themselves, might be looking to offload. I think you can get all those guys for less than a first in a lot of places, and they'll almost certainly be paying off for you down the stretch and into next year. And then you're sort of protected as you go into the offseason. So those are some guys that I'd be looking to target, where you always want to go in the offseason, ideally, with 2 quarterbacks that will have a job at least for the upcoming year, even if you can't project beyond that. But those would be guys that I'd be looking at. And the last one is also a quarterback, but I put on Twitter, Zack Wilson, to me, is just a massive buy right now. Look, he's looked terrible. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He's looked absolutely terrible. I was not even a Zack Wilson fan in the pre-draft process, but he's so locked in to having more opportunities to prove himself, I think. I mean, the Jets just went through this with Darnold, where they drafted him highly. It didn't pan out, and they had to declare the loss there. I don't think that they are going to be in any rush to have back-to-back quarterback busts from top 5 picks. And we've seen with these quarterbacks, it is just not that hard to have these massive value spikes. Like Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones right away in this offseason after 3 games. I mean, you could get a first for these guys pretty easily, even after multiple years where they were really, really disappointing. And I think you get Zack Wilson right now, it's entirely possible he turns this around and he ends up being a fixture on your dynasty teams for a very long time. And even if he doesn't, I think it's almost impossible to not imagine a scenario where at any point this year or next year or the year after, he doesn't at least look like he's turned it around. And then even if you don't think he has, you can get out of him, for more than you're going to pick him up for right now. So I think he's just a glaring buy. I'd say Fields too, but I think people are currently giving him more of the benefit of the doubt than they are with Wilson. And so I think Wilson is the buy that you attempt to do cheap.
I'm having a hard time not completely backpedaling off Fields. He looks like an absolute fucking train wreck that can't handle the basics of operating an offense, and that's terrifying to me. But and a lot of it too is I know even you'll say I'm not patient enough. I know, but he's not even running, right? Like he's not the rookie thing. The basic thing for rookie athletic quarterbacks is that at least they'll take off when they're like pissing their pants. He's not doing that. And I don't know if some of it's confidence. I don't know if it's just he's not vibing. He's not used to losing. He looks in all ways incapable. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt in a year 2. But if somebody is still willing to give me draft day prices for Fields, you can have him, like for sure. Yeah, I didn't expect Mac Jones to look the best out of this class, but right now, even with Lawrence, he still kind of looks the best. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, I'm iffy on Jones. I mean, his keep trade cup is up to like keep trade cup. Trade cut. Cooper Kupp literally lives rent free in my head. His keep trade cut is up to like QB 13. I mean, I'm selling all day at that price. Like I don't know. The Twitter thing is still bothers me with Mac Jones, where a lot of people are like, I'm old enough to remember when everyone said Mac Jones is going to be a bust. Like I don't think people actually said that. I mean, the argument against Mac Jones from fantasy Twitter was always that he was going to be probably just a QB2. And, you could basically guarantee yourself that by just getting a Cousins or a Carr who were cheaper.
Right.
And we already knew what they were, right? Just because Mac Jones, we had issues about a ceiling, it didn't mean that he was guaranteed the floor. Look, I mean, it's an upgrade. I'm quite certain now that Mac Jones is not going to be a bust. Like, I feel very good about Mac Jones playing in this league for a long time. But I still have like no expectation as to why Mac Jones will turn into a fantasy quarterback 1. I think that the odds are still very much against that. And so to me, if you can sell Mac Jones at QB 13 prices, I think you're selling him at his ceiling, because I think realistically he's just going to be kind of what Derek Carr has been for most of his career, which is a very serviceable option for a very long time, which is valuable. But if someone's going to pay, what people were willing to pay for Derek Carr after his second year, which was like back in QB1 level prices, I think history would look fondly upon that.
Yeah. Let's see. For me, a player that I want to go and actively get is Jalen Hurts. I'm going to keep it pretty short.
Okay.
We're jumping off of a guy who is playing well. Here's I have a problem, fantasy Twitter, if any of you at all are the ones who download the show, which, by the way, thank you for everyone who downloads, listens, subscribes, all that. We couldn't do it without you. You want athletic quarterbacks. That's all people care about. I want a quarterback that can run. I don't want a pylon. I want a guy that's going to put up fantasy points no matter what. Okay, what if I told you this is Jalen Hurts? Pfft, no, sell, garbage, trash. Give me a break. We wait for these fantasy rushing quarterbacks with the most upside. And it's, oh, well, he only gets it in garbage time. You don't seem to give a shit when your favorite 0 RB running back gets 5 receptions in the last 3 minutes. You call that a win because it's garbage time, but you're not okay with a quarterback taking off for 40 yards in garbage time? Give me a break. Like, for me, I'm seeing trades and trade polls and questions. Would you trade a 22 first for Jalen Hurts? Yes. I would take Jalen Hurts out of the entire rookie class. Like out of all the quarterbacks in this year's rookie class, I would take him. So if you're going to use that pick on a quarterback, yeah, absolutely I would, for sure. Making a playoff push because your trade deadline's coming up? Yeah. If somebody wants to ship him, absolutely. Right? He's a player that you should be going and acquiring. Will Philly draft a quarterback? If they're dumb, we don't know. Was Sirianni going to keep his job? We don't know. He's got time to continue to blow it. I just don't see a world where Hurts doesn't at least go somewhere where he's successful. He's fantasy viable every week, no matter the matchup. I don't know. How say you about Hurts before we move on?
Man, I'm so torn. I've been really pro Hurts for a while now. I'm getting nervous about what I'm hearing, in Philly. He hasn't been good these last couple of weeks. And I think it's unfair, to the extent that fantasy Twitter and even the Eagles themselves potentially will put these standards upon Hurts. Right, but in real life, like that's the issue.
No, I know. No, I understand.
From a fantasy perspective, he's fantastic. I mean, in redraft, provided that the rumors about him potentially being benched for Gardner Minshew don't happen. I mean, he's a top 5 redraft quarterback locked in. And I was extremely aggressive on him in redraft, and I think that's going to prove to be fantastic.
I can't see them doing that.
In Dynasty, I mean, do I think the Minshew thing is going to happen this year? No, because I don't think it makes any sense. I think that Philly should. I mean, I think they should earnestly spend the rest of the year trying to figure out if Hurts is their long-term answer. And even if they decide we're 100% sure he's not our long-term answer, you derive no benefit from benching him for Minshew, because then all you're doing is telling the rest of the league exactly what you think of Hurts, and you now have no opportunity to trade him elsewhere, right? So I think even if you're 100% sure we're drafting a quarterback, we're out on Hurts, you start him and you hope that he looks great so that you can trade him, right? You don't bench him for Gardner Minshew. It's just killing your franchise either way. That being said, I am just legitimately scared, I guess, of the chance that they draft a quarterback. They're going to have their own pick, which looks to be quite high. They're going to have Miami's pick, which looks to be quite high. And then they may or may not have the Colts pick, depending on what ends up happening with Wentz. Do I think Hurts is better than any of the 22 quarterbacks? I do. I legitimately do. I'm just not so sure that the NFL views him that way. I'm not so sure the Eagles view him that way. And what I would say is I just don't love betting on sort of what these irrational bad franchises are going to do. Like I don't really want to bet on the Eagles agreeing with me. I don't trust the Eagles enough. And so I think that Jalen Hurts has to play so well that he doesn't give the Eagles a choice. And for fantasy, he has. I think for recently in real life, he hasn't. I think that he's shown enough flashes that if he were a first-round quarterback, there'd be no question that he would be getting more opportunities. I just think that the NFL has proven unkind to these guys who are not first-round quarterbacks, where if they don't come in and force the team's hand, the NFL would rather re-roll sometimes. And I that's the thing that scares me out a little bit. So I made a trade in our league of record today. I traded away Hurts. It's a Hurts share that I've had since, prior to the start of last season. I've been holding on to this one for a long time. And I was in a spot where I have Hurts, Matt Ryan, and Wentz. So, I've certainly Hurts is a big upgrade over those guys, but it's not like I'm in dire need of having them just to play quarterbacks. I traded him with Mike Gesicki and a third for Zack Wilson, I just talked about, Kadarius Toney, Curtis Samuel, and a second. And I just think that, I'm 100% sure Wilson's going to be starting quarterback next year. I'm not 100% sure with Hurts, and that's where I wanted to try and get points elsewhere in my lineup. I'm praying for Hurts to remain the quarterback next year. I'm hoping for it. If I get burnt by not holding in Dynasty, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I'll tell you the biggest reason why I'm going to go and buy him, because like you said, they need him to look good. His upcoming schedule is unfreaking believable.
Yeah.
So he's got Detroit, which should be a good matchup for him. The Chargers are going to suck. Should be, it's going to be rough. Denver, iffy, right? New Orleans, tough. Okay, I get it. But Giants, Jets, bye Washington, Giants, bye Dallas. If there's a player that's going to turn it on and light it up towards the end of the year, if you want that league-winning push, this is your guy. And if people are willing to jump off before the trade deadline, seeing as how is the QB3 and 6-point passing touchdown leagues, this is the guy to go and get, right? And like you said, it's 50-50. You got to believe. But to me, he's a glaring buy for me with how – and his value is plummeting by the day, it feels like. I've seen something like this before, but that's it. Look, we're going to get to our picks before we get out of here. Billy left us his picks. So just to update every week, me, Jacob, and Billy, we pick a quarterback outside of the Fantasy Pros consensus top 15, running back out of the top 18, wide receiver out of the top 24. And what's becoming more and more of a pain in the ass every week is a tight end outside of the top 8. We track whose pick scores the most points. At the end of that, we tally it all up. And then, bragging rights at the end of the year. I finally notched my first damn win because Jacob decided not to play last week, but I got my win. I'm on the board. Billy is up 4-2-1 against Jacob and myself. So I'm mounting a comeback right now. So Billy has left us his picks. Billy has picked Trevor Lawrence, Kenny Gainwell, Marquez Callaway, and Evan Ingram. Last week, Billy went Jimmy G, McKissick, and Jacoby and Higbee for a total of 36.84 points. Jacob, who do you have this week as you try to notch your third win?
Yeah. So you want all of them in a row?
All of them in a row.
All right. So at quarterback, I'm hoping that Billy's Marquez Callaway play pays off because I've got the guy chucking him the ball. I've got Jameis Winston. I don't know if anybody's aware, but this is a revenge game for Jameis Winston going up against the Buccaneers. Look, right now it's working out for everybody.
Touchdown game incoming.
The Buccaneers obviously won the Super Bowl with Brady. They're like, yeah, hey, Jameis, hope you're doing well. Don't miss you, right? Jameis, he's got his team back in the mix. They're 4-2. He doesn't have any wide receivers. Doesn't even matter. He's playing pretty well this year. Look, Callaway, I think, has been asserting himself. They got Traquan back. If Traquan can actually finish his routes, maybe, that would be an improvement for sure this week. The biggest issue with the Saints is they've just been playing so slow and so run heavy that it's really taken away a lot of Jameis's fantasy ceiling unless he just chucks a bunch of tutties. They're not going to have that option. The Tampa Bay offense is a force of nature. I don't care how good the Saints defense is. You're not keeping Tom Brady and Godwin and Evans and Gronk and Fournette and these guys out of the end zone forever. They're going to have to pass to win this game. Jameis, I think, is going to be able to get it done against a pretty beatable secondary. I'm expecting him to rip some long balls to Callaway, Smith, maybe even Kenny Bills. And I think he's going to be a top 12 quarterback this week.
Yeah, hard to argue that math, that logic. It all seems to check out for me. Pretty good. Who else you got?
Yeah, I've got Michael Carter as my running back. Michael Carter, not a guy that excites me all that much, but his role's been much better the last couple of weeks. They came out of the bye, and that's what you're always looking for with these rookies. They came out of the bye. They gave him a substantial workload increase. He's been the lead rusher for the Jets for the last while, but finally, for the first time, he ran a lot more routes than Ty Johnson, and now he faces a Cincinnati defense that has actually given up a lot of points to pass-catching running backs. Mike White, creator of the School of Rock and now quarterback for the New York Jets, it passed off to his running backs, I believe, 9 times on like 20 attempts because he can't throw and he can't really play football. So he's going to be a total dump-off
Michael Carter
artist.
had 9 targets.
Yeah, and Johnson had, I think, 6 as well. I mean, they were just dumping. And you get Cincy, they're going to slaughter them. I mean, they beat the Ravens pretty handily last week. You think they're not going to destroy the New York Jets? I mean, come on. So they're going to be up early and often. They will not be very interested in caring if Mike White wants to dump it off to Michael Carter as much as he pleases. I'm expecting Carter to catch like 7-8 balls in this game, and it won't be pretty, but that's more than enough to get you a usable RB2 week.
Yep.
And then when we go over to wide receiver, my wide receiver this week, speaking of not necessarily pretty, but it's going to be Sterling Shepard. Kadarius Toney probably going to play on Monday. I think that is probably your preferred option if he's available. But Shepard has been really solid this season whenever he's played. He's up over 25% target share. He's usually the apple of Daniel Jones's eye, and I expect him to lose this game. The spread certainly agrees with me, as much as the Chiefs have had their issues. And if they're continually having to pass on negative game script, I think it's going to be targeting Shepard over and over and over again, along with Tony, especially with no Golladay, with no Saquon Barkley, expecting a big day from Shepard.
Rip.
And my last tight end pick is Pat Freiermuth. I can't believe he's still outside the top 12. I think he's a top 10 play this week because Eric Ebron is out. Juju Smith-Schuster is out. That means it's pretty much just going to be Claypool and Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth, who has come on recently. I believe he had 7 targets in the last game they had before the bye. Now they're coming off the bye. Ebron's out. That means 80% plus routes most likely for Patty Fries. And in a game that I think could be a little bit more interesting than most people are looking at here against the Browns, I'm pretty into Freiermuth's opportunities to catch 5-6 balls, maybe even a touchdown.
That's a good looking lineup. I'm a little intimidated, but not that intimidated. I'm not Halloween spooked with Patty Fries personally. Yeah. Look, I can't believe I'm about to say the name I'm gonna mention. This scares me, Freddy Krueger style. This is a Halloween epic right here. I will be horrifically scared, but Teddy Bridgewater is my quarterback start this week.
Yuck. But good matchup.
Jerry Jeudy, the judge himself is coming off of IR. He'll be available. Sutton is healthy. Fant is healthy-ish, which is about pretty much the best as you can say with him, because he's always seems to be like healthy-ish, not necessarily healthy. But I think the 2 touchdown game is definitely on the books. Hopefully he plays the whole game. They didn't play lock last week, so I think that pretty much says that unless Bridgewater is dead on the field, he's going to be in there. So Teddy B, good matchup. All the receivers are back. Got to go with him. Look, my running back for the week is Booker. I shit on him the whole time, but he's been producing fantasy points, and Barkley is out. So check down Charlie. Danny Dimes could be looking. If he sneaks into the end zone, I think I'm going to be happy here. It's kind of all you can ask for at this point. Wide receivers. Look, it's Emmanuel Sanders on pace for over 1,100 yards and 8+ touchdowns. Bills coming off a bye. Gabe Davis is dead. Don't at me, Twitter. He is dead and gone. Emmanuel Sanders definitely easily capable of 5 for 80 and a touchdown. That's what I'm hoping for. And at tight end, because it's absolutely disgusting, I'm going to mispronounce his name, but it's Uzama. Look, when he gets the ball, he fucking scores. Like, they don't look his way the whole game, but yet he's out there slapping Marlon Humphrey around like he's a toddler. And he scored again just to prove that he ain't booty cheeks this week. So, Uzama, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name. I'm so sorry. I'm bad with it. Okay. Look, Uzama, Sanders, Booker, and Teddy 2 Gloves Bridgewater. And that's going to wrap it for part 1 of the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast experience this week. Part 2 is going to be coming up in about 5 to 10 minutes. James is going to take a break. We got to get the guest rolling. But with that, look, I always like to say the same things. Every week on Twitter, it seems to be another battle of stupidity or ignorance, or one person hates another. We're talking shit, and just stop with that, right? Positive vibes, right? If you're going to have a discussion, keep it cordial, right? You don't have to attack people when discussing fantasy football. It doesn't make you look cool. It doesn't make you a badass. It makes you look like a dirtbag. So, just positive vibes, right? Show some love to one another. Fantasy Intervention said they added me on Twitter. Good for you. I'm happy
I guess
for
to
you.
get the link. I'll toss you the link in a sec, Chase.
Look, positive vibes. That's what we care about. We're going to keep hammering that home every single day. And as I always like to say, as a reminder, it's clear eyes, full hearts, can never lose, and that the best days are spent tilting. We'll see you in a little bit, everybody. Good night.
The first to arrive was Dr. Hannibal Lecter. He brought his own date, and he seemed to respect her. They hit the dance floor